Midterm elections are always perilous for the party in power, and this year a record number of Republicans have already decided not to run for re-election. 24 are retiring from the House and Senate, plus 5 are leaving to run for higher office. Why so many? Well, that's the question we put to 4 departing Republicans, including Ed Royce, who's one of 10 committee chairmen who have announced they're hanging it up.
That's a lot of experience out the door.
It is, and there's a debate. You know, I think we should look at maybe the length of our chairmanships, but at the same time, I think these term limits are probably good from the standpoint of bringing in new blood, new ideas, and so that's one of the things we weigh on the Republican side.
Senator, when you left your House colleagues and went to the other side of the Capitol, I'm sure you intended to serve more than one term in the Senate.
I always thought probably 2 terms, but I'm kind of out of step with my party. And it makes it very difficult to have the positions that I have and win re-election in a Republican primary.
So have you changed, or has the party changed?
I don't think I've changed that much, but I do think the party has changed considerably.
Do you all agree with that?
Well, from my standpoint, I think that the party has always been a big tent party. I think there's room in the party for a lot of different viewpoints.
Do you think that the tent is as big as it used to be?
No, I don't, actually. I think what's happening in Congress is the political center is collapsing. But that's not true across the country. What I found is that we have become enormously polarized here in Congress, and that polarization has led to a paralysis. I mean, the very simple, basic tasks of governing, just keeping the government open.
But if folks like you leave, don't things just get worse?
I think that part of the answer here, though, is for us to look at what we can do to change the fact that no longer do we really have the types of friendships across the aisle that we once had.
But when you
That's
look at,
important. But
when you
yes.
look at the future of the Republican Party, I think that we would be foolish to not see that we're heading into trouble. Very few women are running for on the Republican Party ticket for office. Far greater numbers of women are identifying themselves as being in the Democratic Party. Minorities that have always been traditionally a group that we should really be going after. I don't see that we really have a recruiting program that's active to get minorities involved in our party. So the growth of our party, it seems to be very limited in a specific group, whereas the demographics of our great country is changing greatly. And when you look ahead, what's our future going to be? Are we going to end up a marginalized party? I think that we need to look toward the future, and we need to have the policies that attract millennials, women, and minorities. I don't see that.
Well, you know, people have been sounding that alarm bell within the party for a while, and you're doing pretty well right now. You've got the White House, the House, and the Senate. So what incentive is there to change?
I think there's a fundamental political realignment happening in our country. You look at where the Democrats are, they've gone kind of full Bernie. Bernie is more or less taken over their party, even though he didn't win the nomination. On our side, you know, Donald Trump took over the Republican Party. And I do think that this political ground is shifting. Under our feet, nobody knows quite how it will settle. And in our party, a lot of members have adjusted their politics to suit the president. You know, it's really about loyalty to the man more than it is about any set of given principles or ideals. And I think that's what's really changed.
I would agree with that, and I agree with Ileana in terms of where the Republican Party is going and the danger. If you look every 4 years, every presidential election cycle, we are, as a country, 2% less white. Voters of color, it's changing that way. And I don't think that we've made enough of an effort as Republicans to appeal across a broader electorate. And then with young people as well, given some of the positions and the behavior that the president has exhibited, I think it makes it very difficult for young people to identify with the Republican Party. I think they've been walking away from the party in general. I think they're at a dead sprint right now, and we've got to change that.
We don't need to change our principles. We don't need to change what we stand for. But like Charlie said, not every vote is a loyalty vote, whether you're for or against the president. And that's how it's framed all the time. You've got to be a loyal soldier. I don't think people feel as comfortable, the moderate Republicans feel as comfortable with this kind of tone.
Well, on this issue, though, if you think about individually, Ileana, what we're doing, we have recruited female candidates, Asian candidates, Hispanic candidates. You've helped elect 3 now. You've got 3 members who are Hispanic that I know you played a large role in their elections. I think we'll continue in this vein.
But she is pro-immigration reform, pro-hiking the minimum wage, pro-same-sex marriage. Could you have gotten elected in a Republican primary for the first time now?
I think so. It depends a lot on the personality of the candidate and getting back to what the Republican Party used to be, where we were accepting of all types. And yes, we're doing a pretty good job in recruiting candidates at the local level, at the state level. But when you look at the makeup of the Democratic Party here in Congress, I don't see those Asian women and those minority women serving in the House GOP or in the Senate GOP. I mean, that's the reality. Maybe our farm team is slowly coming up, but we used to be more accepting of having moderate positions, and now it's getting harder.
It starts at the top. I agree with that. Candidates matter, and we have a responsibility to do our bit. But at the top, when the president makes incendiary comments on Hispanics, Muslims, women, the Charlottesville situation, and others, I think it narrows our appeal. And I do believe that we have to be much broader in our thinking and show that that the welcome mat is actually out and that we want everybody in.
It's like Charlie said, it's become kind of a loyalty test to the man rather than to principles. And then the problem is if you, as a candidate or as an elected official, align yourself to a person rather than principle, then you're wedded to that person wherever he or she goes, and that's dangerous. It really is, and I see that a big problem for the party going forward.
And you've got the Freedom Caucus, this group of conservatives, telling the Speaker of the House, your leadership position is at risk if you stray too far from where we want to be on immigration.
I've never supported these types of tactics. Trying to sack your own quarterback is not a strategy, frankly, that usually when you're working as a team is going to lead to success, right? Threats usually don't lead to success.
They've had some success.
What would lead to success, I don't think that's successful in terms of getting legislation into effect.
Senator, when you talk about immigration, mass violence, opioids, has Congress lost its ability to solve big problems?
It'd be hard to argue that we haven't. In the Senate, we have a 60-vote requirement for most legislation, and we've had a hard time coming together. There are things that we should, on the gun issue, obviously the bump stocks, no fly, no buy, those kind of things. There's broad consensus in the country, certainly, and there should be, and I hope that we can move legislation like that. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to.
But on immigration, you look at the president's position, and what he says on Monday may be different than what he says on Wednesday, and may be different on Friday. So it's very hard, I think, for leaders on DACA, on Dreamers like Jeff Flake, to figure out a way forward. It's schizophrenic what's coming out of the White House in terms of policy on immigration and Dreamers.